Okay, ladies and gentlemen, can you hear me now? Okay, let's get started. Gentlemen, when you're ready, please. We got a really special opportunity today for you guys, the students, staff, and faculty as well. Special day for me. I have two of my close friends and buddies, football teammates from a long time ago, and true American heroes that are here to talk to you today. Share some of their story, talk to you about leadership, and those kind of things. I first met Colonel Greg Gadson exactly 40 years ago. I was a sophomore football player at West Point, and Greg was a freshman. He had gone to the prep school, a highly recruited guy. I was a scout team guy, so I spent the whole first year slugging it out with the varsity, trying to make my mark, and then I hurt my knee and then missed all of spring ball, and so I'm still on the scout team, and so this is where I remember meeting Greg, because I'm still trying to get up to that varsity level, and we're just starting the season out, and we're doing a drill, and Greg is over there as a defensive end with varsity, unusual for a freshman to be up with the varsity. And Greg wasn't super big back then. He was probably under 200 pounds, maybe? 200?
183.
183, right? And I'm like, okay, we're doing this drill where guard will pull and try to kick out the defensive end, and I counted the down line. I'm like, oh, good. I'm going to make my mark here. Like, I'm going to put this little guy on his butt. This is going to be fun. And so I pulled down the line full stead of steam, and he just stuffed me like I wasn't. And I'm like, I'm never getting off scout team. Never. Like, that was terrible. But I realized, amazing player. That started a friendship that, like I said, has gone on for 40 years as we were teammates those years. The following year, a guy named Will Huff came in, and Will was a defensive player who, his senior year, was captain of the Army defense. But at West Point, it was a lot about, the bonds you make with your classmates and the brotherhood of Army football. Very similar to kind of what you guys are going through today. Like, that bond of being together and working through things is powerful. But, football's a game. We played football, we enjoyed it, we had a great time, and then we all went off to serve in the Army. So I'm going to first introduce Colonel Greg Gadson, and then I'll introduce Colonel Will Huff. Colonel Gadson's military service spanned nearly 3 decades, included deployments to some of the world's most challenging and volatile regions: Kuwait, Bosnia, Afghanistan, and Iraq. In May of 2007, while serving as the commander of the 2nd Battalion, 32nd Field Artillery in Iraq, he faced his greatest challenge while returning home from a memorial service for 2 soldiers from his brigade. His Humvee was hit with an improvised explosive device, IED, and it resulted in the loss of both of his legs above the knee and the normal use of his right arm and hand. In the face of this adversity, rather than yielding to despair, he decided to continue on, right? They wanted to retire. So we'll medically retire you. He didn't want to be retired. He wanted to continue to serve. So he continued to do that. Go back a second. There's an email I sent you guys 2 days ago. You guys look at it. You see the picture, the one picture of the 2 of these guys together? That was taken 48 hours before Colonel Gadson hit the IED. Will Huff, another teammate, was also there. Will, who spent his whole career from the Rangers, Special Forces, and Delta, was there working with Greg's unit. And when Greg was hurt, he was with him from the time he got hurt all the way back, being back to Germany. I think he told me 6 times that he almost flatlined, and Will was right with him, encouraging him to live. So he went to Walter Reed, and that was 2007, 2008, I was still teaching at West Point and got the opportunity to go visit him there. And when I walked through Walter Reed and saw all of the damage to the soldiers and the things that were there, it was really touching. And to see my buddy, one of the toughest guys I know, in that bed struggling was really difficult. But from the very beginning, Greg had a desire, right, to not let this get him down, to not let this beat him. And he has an amazing story of perseverance, of toughness, of resilience, of taking what God handed him and making the most of it. And I wanted him to share that story with you today. So I'm going to turn it over to Colonel Greg Gadson.
Thanks, Nick. Well, good afternoon, gentlemen, and what an honor to be here, especially with these gentlemen on my left and right. It's hard to believe that life goes by so fast, and we've got so many stories. Maybe a few of them are lies or embellished on. That's what happens over time. But in one way, I can say I'm certainly proud, and there's not one thing that I would change in my life in this journey. And there's been some tough moments, but those are always moments that you can grow. And so for a lot of you, I'm preaching to the choir. So as I share my story this afternoon, a little bit of my story, I'm going to share it in a way I'm not sure I've ever shared it with. You see, these 5 words that you have above you are the key to your lives. They are the key to your lives. And every day you have an opportunity to hold yourself accountable to every one of those words. You and only you can look yourself in the mirror at the end of the day and say, did I live up to my best in what these words give me? It may sound simple, it may sound easy, but it doesn't get any easier. The older you get, the tougher it is to be able to hold yourself accountable. And so what I'm going to press it upon you at this point in your life is to take that serious. This is why you're in school. This is why you're in college. This is why you're in this incubator to learn. And to turn those words, turn those habits of living up to those words into character. Because this life, this world is not about what you do. It's not about what you achieve. It's not about your rank or what you wear. It's about who you are. And that's your character. That's what you get to own. There's no one can take your character away from you. And I challenge you, I submit to you that you are going to be faced, some of you have already faced some tough challenges, but there are going to be more storms ahead, and that's just life. This life owes you nothing, but you can grab everything if you have the character, the perseverance, the will, the belief, the faith that our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ has made, that he will never forsake us. That doesn't mean he's going to give us what we want. That doesn't mean it's going to be what we expected. But he's going to get us to the other side. You see, his promises really are not about this journey on earth. It's when we move on from here. That's ultimately the gift that we all are moving toward. If I asked you rhetorically, put your faith on a scale of 1 to 10, how many of you would say it's a 10? Okay. And I appreciate that honesty. I'm not sure. I know when I was in your shoes. I know 20 years ago I couldn't have said 10. But there was something innate in me, the trust that he would never forsake me. And so that was finally put to the test, because it's called a testimony. 18 plus years ago, as President Mike Brown said, on 7 May of 2007, I had the privilege of attending a memorial service for 2 young men and a sister battalion in the brigade I was part of from Fort Riley, Kansas. I remember their deaths. I was struggling with the sacrifice of these two young men. Not much older than you are. One a lieutenant, recently commissioned, and his driver, not much older than any of you in this room. I'm trying to wrap my mind around the sacrifice of these men's lives and their families that they made so that we could be where you're at right now. Not worried about a tyrannical government, not worried about someone taking something away from you. The freedom to think and to say what you want to say. Those men pay with their lives. Here I am, 17 years now, an officer, struggling with this sacrifice, and were we getting the job done? Were we making it worth it? Was this worth it? As I headed back to my headquarters in a 4-vehicle patrol, hauling butt down the road, trying to get back safely when my vehicle was struck by a command detonated improvised explosive device. So what I'm saying is it wasn't random. Someone, a man on the other end of a wire detonated a bomb that struck my vehicle, and it blew me out of my armored vehicle. I remember hitting the ground and coming to a rolling stop on my back. First pissed, but very quickly realizing that I could not move. And the last thing I said was, God, I do not want to die here. Not about my family, my wife, not anything. I said, God, I do not want to die in this country. And I lost consciousness. And my teammates, men like First Sergeant Frederick Johnson, the senior non-commissioned officer in my patrol, first to arrive at my vehicle and recognize that I was missing, would locate me 100 yards or so from where my vehicle came to a stop. I was already unconscious where he began to resuscitate me, and a young 19-year-old private named Eric Brown would put the tourniquets on my legs. The doctors give this young man credit for saving my life. It's a trade. He's a medic. That man did what he was supposed to do, like you're training to do what you're supposed to do, and he saved my life. They get me in a vehicle, I'm laying in his lap, my head's laying in his lap, and I asked him to recite the soldier's prayer. These are not things I thought of, but in my time of need, I knew who to call on. Think about that. If you don't have a relationship with the Lord, if you don't have faith, it's like not knowing how to dial 911. So now I rate my faith as a 10. I went through 129 pints of blood and died 6 times that evening. So I can say that I'm here today because my team saved my life. This was a bloody fight, gentlemen. 131 U.S. service members were paid with their lives in the month of May of 2007 alone. One of, if not the bloodiest month of fatalities in Iraq during our whole time there. This gentleman here, our lockers beside each other for 3 years at West Point. Held hands in the huddle. Brothers for life. Never could I imagine from the fields of friendly strife to the battlefield, he would be there with me. Commandeered a helicopter to connect with me and would accompany me all the way from Baghdad to Germany, where as far as they would let him go. Praying with me, staying with me, willing me to live. Because of the investment that we put in each other, on those fields of friendly strife, that blood, sweat, and tears that you put into life here every day will pay dividends in your life moving forward. I can guarantee you that. And the energy and the effort that you put in now, that's what you're going to be able to draw on when you're in tough times. So if you're shortchanging those deposits now, that money is not going to be there when you need it. I would arrive at Walter Reed Army Medical Center on the 11th of May. I still had my legs at that time, intubated on a feeding tube in an induced coma, requiring surgery every other day to repair my blood vessels and clean out my wounds. 1 week after getting at Walter Reed, they had to take my left leg to save my life. A week later, I made the decision for them to take my right leg because I just wanted to move on. My world was upside down. I didn't know which way was up, but I had an army. I had an alumni. I had a world that was there to comfort my blows. I can tell you that there were a myriad of emotions that I had, not knowing what to expect in life and what was ahead of my life. But God promised us, He's promised every one of us that there's nothing that we can't get through. You don't have to see the answer. You don't have to know what's over the horizon. He's made that promise that you can get through. And sometimes you got to walk by faith and not by sight. And I began that walk. I began that walk with a heart that was unencumbered by hate, by accepting what had happened to me. I was now not being held back by holding on to that anger, to holding on to those thoughts. I was completely free. I say now, I'm freer now without my legs than when I was with my legs. And so as Mike said, I was not going to be defined by what I didn't have. I was going to be defined by what I had. I began to fight back that I wanted to continue to serve, that I still had something to give. And thankfully, 3 years later, the Army approved for me to stay on and continue my service. I served as a director of the Army Wounded Warrior Program, and my final assignment was the garrison commander of Fort Belvoir. But again, along the way, I had friends that just supported me, asked me to do things, speak. I wasn't a public speaker before this happened to me. A classmate, a teammate, a coach for the New York Giants asked me to share a little bit of my thoughts and perspectives on life early in their season. And they took to that message. And we took that all the way to Super Bowl 42, where we beat the undefeated New England Patriots in Super Bowl 42. So guess what? I not only have one, but I've got 2 Super Bowl rings, both against Tom Brady. So they call him the GOAT, so just saying. I had a director ask me to act in a movie called Battleship. I had never played a tree in a school play, much less acted before. And I ended up with a lead role. Now, this is not about Greg Gadson bragging about the great things that he's had a chance to do, because I'm blessed. But it's more, I hope it serves as an example, as inspiration to understand that you can achieve anything you want in life. It's okay to struggle. It's okay to fail. Those are all parts of life. It's what you do in that face of adversity. That's your character. It's not a reservoir. It's not an A and B switch. It's who you are. And every day you get to make a deposit against those 5 words, against those standards and values that you promised to live up to and uphold. You and only you can look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, did I do my best? Was I my best today? You're not competing against each other, you're competing against yourself. When you're your best, that's all you can ask for yourself. I'll leave you with these few thoughts here. Look, in my opinion, our lives are not about what we accumulate. They're not about what we make. They're about what we leave. That's our legacy. That's what outlives us. And your time here will prepare you to make that big deposit, to create a legacy. Family, friends, there's lots of ways to make a legacy, but it's about what you give, not what you take from this world. It's about what you give. And lastly, I try to live my life with these 3 simple words. Be present. You cannot relive yesterday. Let it go. If you're holding on to something, I don't care how ugly it was. When you hold on to it, it defines you. When you hold on to it, it defines you. So let it go. And don't live a day that you're not promised. Be present. Because if you can be present, now you can be your best. You're where you're at, and you can now be your best. And if you can do those 2 things, I say, to me, that's peace. That doesn't mean it all went the way you wanted, but you put it all on the table, and you can accept that. Be present, be your best, and be at peace. God bless you, gentlemen. Thank you.
Well done, as always.
So guys, I know earlier in chapel, we saw something, I think it was iron sharpens iron. Remember that piece? So I can just tell you, as 40 years ago, showing up at West Point and getting to be lifelong friends with guys like Greg Gadson and Will Huff, helped me try to be better, right? Because what an inspiration. And this is nothing new. Greg was always an inspiration before he ever got hurt. But he led with his heart, and the stories. Will told me from Iraq when he was hurt, where literally Iraqi officers went through the green zone and the humiliation of all the pat downs and stuff to give their blood to try to help their friend Colonel Gadson, right? So life deals you some hard cards sometimes, right? And we've all had it. We got a reason. We got a reason to be upset. We got a reason to blame somebody for our situation. We got a reason to be angry, maybe even give up. But that never accomplished anything. Think about that. You got a wife and kids and you've lost both your legs. Where are you at? Faith? And I'm not going to let this beat me. I'm going to put it behind me. I'm going to make the most of it. make the most of it. I don't think you ever would have been starring in a movie with Brooklyn Decker if you hadn't had this happen to you. Those are the kind of things it's all about your attitude, guys. It's your attitude. Everybody here is going to face challenges. I hope you never face the kind of challenge that Colonel Gadson did, but I do hope you respond to your challenges in the way that Colonel Gadson did. And I'll tell you another thing. When we get together, it might have been a long time since we began together, but it's like we never left, right? That bond of friendship that we have is eternal. And it's the same thing that's happening right here. And I think you guys recognize it. You're going through this together. That bond is important. And life is all about relationships, right? Where we can help each other out, pick each other up when we need to, that never goes away. So he said, be present, be focused, help each other every single day, and make the most of the opportunity you got, because you never know how many more you're going to get. Just awesome. Thank you for being here. And Will Huff. So in classic Will Huff way, Will Huff is an incredibly amazing person. He was a captain of the Army defense his senior year. He then decided he went and played lacrosse and lettered in lacrosse. A talented athlete, but just a guy with always a positive attitude. Let me tell you what he did in the Army. So he graduated in 1991 from the U.S. Military Academy, and he was a captain of the 1989 football team. These are his assignments in the U.S. Army: 82nd Airborne Division, 75th Ranger Regiment, Asymmetric Warfare Group, and 1st Special Forces Detachment, and then Delta Force. Ever heard of Delta Force? Listen to this. Deployments include 54 months in support of Operation Enduring Freedom and Iraqi freedom. 54 months in combat. And Will was sharing with me when his kids were growing up, his son made the comment, is Dad coming home to visit? Dad coming home to visit? Look at the sacrifice that he made for our country, for all of us, in the times that he spent over there. And then to have the fortune to be with Greg, to help Greg live through this and be with this and surround him, friends, family, and everybody to help him get where he needs to get to. It's an amazing, amazing story. So Will, I sent that email out. You saw that picture? That picture was taken, I said, 48 hours before Greg's accident. Will was with him, as Greg said, all the way on the flight back from out of Baghdad to Germany, kind of willing him on to live. Colonel Huff had a full career in the Army, retired a couple years ago, 2015, I think, right? And has worked in college athletics and professional sports and nonprofits, and is a consultant right now. He resides in Annapolis, Maryland, enemy territory, we think, right? Naval Academy, but still, he has wife and he has a son and a daughter who are both officers serving in the United States Army today. So I want to introduce my good friend, Will Huff. Will.
Thanks, Mike. All right, gents, I'm just going to take, how about everybody just stand up, shake it out, and then sit back down. All right, let's start with that. Because I know it gets a little hot in here. All right, feeling good? Feeling good? And we're going to have a special, so go ahead and take your seats. And I am holding in my hand my phone, and I'm going to give you the request to take out your phones, but not yet. Bear with me. Just hold up. First, and Greg glossed over it, how many in here ever saw the movie Battleship? All right, that will be your homework. Dean and Provost, am I allowed to give a homework assignment? If you haven't watched the movie Battleship, do it in the next couple days. Now, you may not enjoy it as much now, but if you had watched it as like a 12, 14-year-old, it's the perfect movie. So enjoy that. The second piece, how many Giant fans? Not many of us. That's okay. That's okay. But Greg underplayed the role that he had. One of my favorite videos is Michael Strahan being brought to tears as he told Coach Coughlin, hey, did we get a ring for Colonel Gadson? Because if not, I'll give him mine. So that's the type of impact that Greg Gadson had on that New York Giant football team. And the last, before I get into this discussion we're going to share about Leaderly, I want to leave you with the thought. You know, when Greg and so we said lockers, we actually faced each other. So we got dressed for 3 years this far apart. And you know the type of relationships that you have. Now, the other thing he didn't share, we like to sometimes play little games on our other teammates. So we would just loosen up a chin strap, just enough where they wouldn't notice until the first hit. Or tighten up the shoulder pad strap. So as they're running late to practice and they realize, now that's just some of the gist. But what you have today, you're not even aware of it. Today, amongst you are those relationships that will bring together folks like Mike, Greg, and I 40 years later. So I am saying this with great confidence, that you are forming those same bonds, those same relationships. And I can't define today, none of us can, what that's going to look like. But 10, 20, 30, 40 years from now, you'll also reach out to that group of Williamson men, and that bonding starts here. This is your crucible that's bringing together relationships that will bear fruit into the future, and that I can promise you. So with that being said, thanks for giving me a little leeway, Mike, to give homework. Watch Battleship, become a Giant fan.
Oh, well, that's a little much.
Okay, so now, Dr. Zachary, good? Gentlemen, take out your phones. You are authorized to take out your phone. And what you see up on the screen is a QR code. Please activate that QR code. I will get out of your field of fire. So when you activate, when you go to the QR code, the code is 1888. Everybody knows what year that is, correct? 1888. And while you're doing that, I'm going to give you a little background to why President Rounds, Dr. Zachary, and the staff has been supportive of this. Almost a year ago, I get a call from Greg Gadson inviting me to learn about Leaderly. Well, he didn't even tell me what. He said, hey, I'm going to West Point. Why don't you come? And you know when you reach a relationship with an individual, you don't ask what. You only ask when and where. And then you show up and figure it out because I have such trust in Greg. And during that time, I got to learn about this Leaderly app. And this Leaderly app is a tool that is individualized to you as a person. And we're going to talk about that individualization. And it's also customized to Williamson College of the Trades. So if you now have this page, just raise your hand if you have it up now. Does anybody have that activated, or are you still working on it? Okay, all right, so that's okay. You guys are all part of the generation that you're going to take to this, what's the expression, like fish the water? I know that. I share that because a year ago when I learned what Greg had invited me to was a meeting about a leadership app. And of course, I shared that with my 2 adult kids, and they said, Dad, you don't know anything about, you don't even know what an app is. Of course, I reminded them, you know that thing called Venmo that I send you money? I know what an app is. You know that other thing that I keep paying for, Uber? I know what an app is. And I've spent time, just like all of you are going to be exposed throughout your lives, of something new. So to me, to be really candid, the whole idea of an app was new. But this is something that's going to be individualized to you as a person, customized to Williamson College of the Trades. And I'm very excited to be a part of this partnership. And I believe that you'll find it rewarding. The whole idea is micro-learning. So outside of school, pick up the phone. I'm not saying not to check out NFL scores or TikTok. You know, we're not competing with that avenue. But spend 5, 6, 8 minutes every other day creating an individualized development program for you. This is an investment for you. So your leadership here at the college is investing in your individual development. So does anybody is the internet still down? We're hitting a pause. Okay. Too many people? That's all right. So this is a journey. We have two aspects of this, and we'll send out some more supporting documents, but one is going to be recommended areas for you to investigate, micro-learning, self-discovery. The other piece, what I find very compelling, is learning about yourself. We all know that the first step in leadership is know who you are. Well, we have tools in here that are going to allow you to quickly answer questions and get feedback on what type of person you are for that critical component of self-awareness. And that self-awareness is going to help you throughout your career. So I'm excited. I am humbled. I know Greg and I were talking about the quality of students. Now, who here spoke to us today? About a dozen. I did share that when how old are you guys? 20? 19, 20? That when I was a 19 or 20-year-old, if somebody had come and bumped into Cadet Huff and asked me to give, like each of you gentlemen did, a good 60, 90-second presentation about yourself, I would have stuttered, mumbled, and just waited for the moment to stop engaging with this adult. And I was incredibly impressed with each of yours ability to meet folks that you don't know, including the president of the university, including Greg Gadson, who can be a little intimidating. And you all just demonstrated incredible self-confidence, and that's going to go a long way. And this is the type of tool with the Leaderly app that's going to continue to augment your development as an individual, because we want you to be the best person that you can be. So with that said, Dr. Zachary, over to you.
Okay, so when you'll get this slide if you're still having difficulty, but I want to point out one thing. There's a lot of things. I've been working with Colonel Huff and his team for the last 4 months, so I'm very familiar with how Leaderly works. We've been programming it a little bit. So there's a lot of neat things in here. Again, we're not requiring you to do it, but I will guarantee you're going to find so much of interest in there. I do want to point out two things real quick. When you first log in, you're going to get this kind of screen right here, and then if you hit home, you'll get this screen right here. Okay. If you click on the big W in the middle, it'll bring up kind of what looks like a little wheel. Okay. And in that little wheel, there'll be 32 some odd little tasks for you guys to do. Okay. Again, not required. We're hoping that you get it. It's designed to get you kind of familiar with Leaderly. So here's my incentive to you. There are 32 of them, and each one of the tasks take, 30 seconds, couple minutes, tops?
Yep, very.
Okay, very quick. Whoever gets between now and finals, which is in December, at least 25 of those tasks done during final week, hence week, you can be in casual clothes. Oh, I raised a little eyebrows, I see. Okay? Meaning, we'll define that for you. That means you can wear sneakers and jeans and polos. Okay? Versus classroom dress. That doesn't mean pajamas, flip-flops, but we'll define that. But that's for finals week. But you got to get at least 25 of them done before finals week. Okay? And I get a report who's done what. Okay? So it's very easy for me to track. Okay, I will guarantee you when you get into Leaderly and you start working some of those 25, because again, last 4 months, that's what I've been doing, playing with it here and there. Okay, I can guarantee you're going to get hooked. There's a lot of great stuff into this. Okay, from talks to simulations to you can even do a personality test in this thing that normally costs you $500 to $1,000 to get on the outside. Okay, it's really a kind of a cool app. A lot of great material in it. So. Again, if you haven't logged into it now, just sometime tonight, I'll send this slide out. Okay, so the QR code will be there. But take a look at it. I think you'll find a lot of stuff into it that's incredibly valuable. Sir.
Yeah, I'll say, look, I say not selfishly, I'm one of the co-founders of it. Now look, this is about you. Leadership, if you think of leadership this way. You're going to lead. You're always leading. Whether you're in charge or not, you're always leading. Think about that. And so, to become a good leader, you got to be a good follower. This will give you insights into yourself. So when you do begin to lead, when you are in charge, remember this. It's not about what you said, it's about what they heard. And you stay humble to that, and you'll be all right.
All right, thank you guys. Listen, we got about 5 minutes for questions, but just to kind of sum this up, right? Leadership is a big part of what Williamson's all about. You guys know that from day one. We talk about it. The juniors getting ready for the leadership trip. That experience is going to take you into your senior year when you can lead and mentor the freshmen. That's what sets Williamson guys apart. So, could you find two better leaders anywhere in the world than these two guys? Their entire life has been about this. This is a great new tool to help you guys on your own personal journey of leadership. And so we're super excited to have them here to introduce this app to you, all in the about the idea of becoming the best you can be, including the best leader you can be. And that's what it's all about. We have about a little more than 5 minutes. We want to give some time for questions from the students to either of these gentlemen about anything. So, who's got a question? Oh, come on. Yes, sir. Back there. Nice. Stand up, let us know your name and shop, and show us your question.
Well, I'm Henry from the machine school. I was wondering, what was it like being in that?
It was in a lot of ways it was like a military operation. Now, what I mean by that is everybody had a specific job. I mean, literally, you had somebody that did your hair, did your face, your wardrobe. I mean, it was really specialized. And what was really a challenge for me was I didn't really have any continuity about the movie because I literally filmed backwards. You've seen the movie? So the very last scene in the movie that I'm in on the stage with Liam Neeson, I did that first. And the very first scene that you see me in, I actually did last. So I was literally filming backwards. So nothing made any sense to me, and I just had to do what I needed to do that day. I'd asked my acting coach. I mean, I had no prior training. I was like, what are we doing today, Mike? And he's like, yeah, this is what, because he'd read the script, and then we'd start rehearsing in the morning. So, it was all for me, and it's indicative of how I try to live my life. Be where you're at. Be in the moment. Don't worry about what's next. Don't worry about what happened in the past. And, I just did my job.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because, probably saw a movie before that called Forrest Gump, right, where Lieutenant Dan, and then he loses his legs in combat, and then he's in all CGI stuff, right? So a number of people that came up to him later like, oh, you are actually Colonel? You did actually lose both your legs? Like, the role you're playing is really who you are. And so that was, a pretty cool thing. So
a lot of people thought it was CGI. And then I actually meet the Lieutenant Dan, Gary Sinise, and I go, hey, I'm the Lieutenant Colonel Dan. And he's like, looked at me like, so now I'm on his board, so the Gary Sinise Foundation. So.
Yeah, fantastic. Another question? Yes, sir.
Good one.
Biggest hardship. I think just the biggest hardship was not being back with my soldiers in Iraq. I mean, I felt guilty. I mean, I'm in a hospital bed with, half my body gone, and I still felt like I let them down. And that was difficult to process. It was the first time that I never completed a deployment, and I felt like at that for some time, I felt like I didn't have a team, like I wasn't part of anything.
And if I could add to that, one thing I would share, Greg's very humble about this, but after taking Greg to Germany, I returned to Iraq, and as Greg mentioned, this was the most lethal part of the campaign. It was decisive operations. Greg's unit was leading the way in the most innovative, creative solutions for very complex warfare. And when he departed, there was a time where the head coach of the team, that was Lieutenant Colonel Greg Gadson, was not there. But his team thrived. In fact, they captured the number 3 Al-Qaeda terrorists in Baghdad. The gentleman who was critical in that operation was the same First Sergeant Johnson who had literally picked up Greg Gadson with all his equipment, was weighing close to 300 pounds, carried Greg away. That same gentleman, First Sergeant Johnson, also was the one who surrounded this Al-Qaeda operative. And one of the great themes about that organization is they would always talk about, hey, we're doing this for Colonel Gadson, we're doing this for Colonel Gadson. And that was the ultimate litmus test of a leadership, is how do you leave the unit after you're gone? Greg didn't plan on leaving that unit May 7th, but I can tell you, because of what he had done in the previous 18 months, they continued to perform at the highest level.
Yeah, and I think, when you talk about leadership, sometimes people think that's all about being out front, being the person that's getting all the attention, and really humility is what separates the great leaders. And just like Will said about Greg, very humble leader, to the point of you train your people so that they know what to do. They know what the intent is, and if you're not there, they know what they're supposed to do. And the leader can step out of the organization, and the organization continue to function and thrive. That's probably the greatest compliment that anybody can have for a leader. And I think it's pretty interesting to answer your question that, the hardest thing wasn't how am I going to live my life without my legs, what am I going to do? He actually felt guilty that he was not with his unit, right? And that just shows you again, when you're a great leader, that bond is tight bond. And I think for all of us that went through West Point together, that served in the Army, that's why we stayed as long as we did. It's special, and you guys again have that same opportunity. But you gotta throw yourself into it, and you gotta put yourself not first, but last. We talk about servant leadership, right? Caring about your people.
We got 75 years of leadership. Is that right? Really?
That just says we're really old.
Oh, yeah,
by the
or
way.
dumb.
I know. 75 years of time in the Army right here on the stage, and Colonel Zachary, Dr. Zachary, 30 years in the Air Force, and you guys, there's Gunnery Sergeant King in the Marine Corps, right? There's, we got a lot of folks around here that have military experience in that, and that is a key part of what this school's about, that kind of discipline, leadership training, accountability, all that is all about being part of this team and what you can do to make yourself better, because that makes the team better, right? Any other questions? We got time for one more. All right, you're up. Go ahead. No, not you, Chase. We'll do 2. We'll come back to you last. Go ahead.
Great question. I think your faith is like it's part of your character. It becomes part of who you are, and so it's not instantaneous. You just gotta you have to work at it. You have to. Start with something simple. Again, build on your habits. You do your daily. I used to do my daily bread. There's a little book, The Daily Bread, where I would read the scripture and just receive that message. Take a second out of every day to make that connection. It may not, it's not something you're going to notice instantaneous. It's not going to say, maybe there's a light bulb that clicks on. I don't think it was for me until I was laying there on the ground. But you know what? For 41 years, or I was 41 years old when I was wounded, I put something in that jar. I read my daily bread every morning, and before we went out on every patrol, we put our arms around each other and somebody said a prayer in our group. You could say I was just going through the motions, but it was a habit. And when I needed to make that 911 call, I knew to make it.
All right, Chase, you got the last question. Go ahead.
Good afternoon. My name is Chase Thompson, senior in power plant. You guys, all three of you guys have very impressive resumes. I was curious, what's your greatest achievement and what motivated you to achieve it?
I'll go first so you can buy you guys some time. My greatest achievement is my family. My wife, spouse, classmate of 36 years, our 2 children, my daughter Gabriella, 33, my son Jalen, 31, and my 6 grandkids, 3 boys and 3 girls. That's my greatest achievement.
And I would say the same about the family, but number 2 is I've been reflecting. I've now reached a point in life where I have that true relationships with many great individuals. And that's something that takes a lot of time and effort and being sincere, but that will benefit you. So I would say the quality of relationships that I have.
And I'd just say, I hate to steal the same answer, but, to have a time in the Army, and it's not about your personal achievements and those kind of things, but the families sacrifice so much. When I retired and moved out here to the campus in 2013, that summer was our 23rd wedding anniversary. You guys know Mary Nell. 23 years we've been married. That was our 16th house or apartment, quarters in 23 years of marriage, including serving in Germany and Korea and all over the globe. So that's what I take pride into is, how she was able to hold our family together through deployments and all those things and raise our 3 sons to be good, upstanding young men of faith, integrity, diligence, excellence, and service, even though they didn't come to Williamson. And I will say that everything happens for a reason, and my journey led me here. And being here among you guys inspires me every day because of the things that I see in you. It makes me hopeful for the future. So I want to thank you guys for that. Okay, we are out of time. You guys got to go back to class. Before we go, I got a little gift for our 2 colonels up here. So they got a little Williamson polo shirt to wear around, so members of our family. So thank you guys.
Thanks,
They'll fit. How about it? And I'm telling, they'll do what I tell them, but they're gonna come back. It won't be the last time you see them, but it will be the last time you see them today. So, and they both traveled a long distance to come here today. So I really, really do appreciate the opportunity for them to share some of themselves with you and hopefully inspire you in your path. So with that, freshmen rise, seniors you're dismissed. Head back to class. Thank you. Man, that was awesome.
Thank you.